And we are live. All right. Welcome, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Um, we're going to just jump right into a question first. How about that? And just get started. So let me just pull up the Discord. All right. And this question comes from Lamar's Guitars. And he writes, well, actually, let me give you some background here first. This is on the video I just put out recently about a twisted guitar neck and how to fix that. So it was a really great video. Check it out if you haven't seen it, but I think that's enough backstory for this question here that you need. So Lamar's Guitars writes, are you worried about why that neck got a little twisted in the first place? If you had finished it a year ago and sent it out, might there be some playability issues emerging now? Are you worried that the neck might twist a little more in the future? And that is a great question, but I'm going to explain why in this case, I had some very mitigating circumstances. So let me first answer it just generally speaking. That would absolutely be a concern. A twisted neck is not something that you want to address immediately before you've stabilized your environment and the situation. Okay, you want to give time for that guitar to stabilize because you would hate to do all that work and sand it down and have it continue to twist and then you have to level again, which you probably won't be able to do. Let's be honest. At that point, if you've made a fretboard, radiused it, attached it, then re-radiused it and leveled it again because it twisted and then had to do that another time. I mean, you've just got not enough fretboard left. You're not going to be able to install your frets and do all the things you need to do. So you want to be very cued into your environment, right? And that's the situation that I got going here. So the major backstory behind that video, which I didn't talk about too much in it, is that I just moved shops. I have spent the last year, not even joking, the full 12 months just getting this shop, this new environment set up. And I don't know if you guys have ever had a major move. I'm sure most people have if you're old enough, like you've bought new houses and moved. But imagine selling not one property, but two properties, your home and your business, and then bringing the two things together. And that's exactly what we did. Sold our house, sold the business so that we can combine them on a new property. And man, it was just a shit show. I mean, I want to do everything the right way, but when you have that much chaos, you can't. And so if I'm perfectly honest, that guitar, along with many other guitars, sat around with things stacked on top of them in 80% relative humidity, not even joking, for the majority of the summer into early fall. It was high humidity for many months here in the shop. And I just didn't have the time or the wherewithal to attempt to control the humidity. I've now got it under control, but it was out of control then. And it's been under control in here for a couple months now, 3 months, let's say. And so now everything has sort of stopped moving. Essentially, that guitar, when I built it, was built at around 35-40% relative humidity. And then it sat on a shelf in 80% relative humidity for the majority of a year. That's what twisted the neck. Then I stabilized the situation for several months and boom, then there's the video you saw me doing the work on it. So anyway, thank you, Lamar. That's the backstory behind it, but absolutely that normally would be something you would worry about if you hadn't, stabilized your environment first. Okay. Anyway, before we go any further, if you like what I do and you get a little something out of the lessons that I teach, hold on a second. Let me get my slide up here. Why isn't this working? There we go. Wrong slide. All right, now we're on track. If you like what I do and you get a little something out of the lessons that I teach, go to ericschaferguitars.com. There you will see the schedule of dates for my hands-on workshops. We've got workshops in the spring, in the summer, and in the fall. We'd love to have you out here. It's an 8-day workshop. You build your own guitar. You leave with that guitar. It's your guitar. And also at ericschaferguitars.com, you can sign up for my online course, Building an OM Acoustic. There are over 60 full-length instructional videos taking you from the very, very early stages of a build all the way through to the finish, to the point where you've got yourself a finished playable guitar. And lastly, we have the Tonewood shop now. So guys, if you're looking for something different in the realm of Tonewood, I have a lot of things that other places simply do not have. That's kind of the point of the Tonewood shop, is to fill in the gaps, essentially. So check it out, ericschaferguitars.com. All right, let's get back into your questions, guys. All right, so honestly, there's not a whole lot in the Discord right now. So once again, I'm disappointed with you guys in the Discord. I need more questions. And you know what else I want to say is, can we please, this goes for YouTube and Discord, can we please get more beginner questions in here? I like doing some of the crazier, you know, FFT or clad knee patterns kind of stuff. It's definitely fun, very interesting and challenging to talk about. And so I like that. But I've noticed it's just been every Q&A for a while. I think we've gotten a little out over our skis talking about this stuff for too long, to the point where I just get the sense that maybe beginners are a little bit intimidated, and that's why I'm just not getting the questions that I used to get, which are also fun to talk about. Simple questions like, hey, I'm just getting started. Where's a good place to buy guitar molds? What tools do you recommend? Stuff like that. So please, 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 guys, don't be afraid to just interject into whatever conversations are going on in the Discord and elsewhere with these beginner questions. I'm hoping by next week I'll have a slew of beginner questions, so we can talk more about that stuff. But with that said, let me see what else we got in the Discord, and then we'll jump over to YouTube, because honestly, there's not a whole lot in here right now. Okay, Tony D, and this is a response to a response. He had asked the question on my bridge removal video, and then he's responding here to my response, which was, I recommended to him to use these Thompson bridge reducers. So these are a variety of different templates for different style bridges and bridge plates. Okay. So you've got ones that, you know, will fit a classical style bridge and a steel string bridge, and for the bridge plates as well. And there's a couple other interesting sizes too. And what you do with those is you can heat them up and essentially use them. You know, that belly you get behind the bridge on older guitars, or even just poorly made guitars, the top is too thin or something like that. Or just guitars that were poorly maintained. Maybe it's not old, but it's been sitting in an attic with too much tension on the strings for too long. All of that will cause the belly to bulge, and you'll get a little sunken cavity in front of the bridge too. And you can actually, like, really, it's impressive what these things can do. They can really work that bulge out. I've done it where it's worked it out 100% before. Usually it's not quite 100%, just gets it closer, but I've seen 100%. So anyway, oh yeah, let's see what he said. Thanks for addressing the bulge issue, Eric. I didn't know the belly bulge reducers existed. I will be buying them. Pics of my Hashimoto. So he's got pics of his Hashimoto, which he had given us some background on this before. It's an old Martin copy, and yeah, made in the 70s. That's pretty interesting. I actually looked this up a little bit. I had no idea what Hashimoto was. He writes, I bought this guitar when I was 16. I'm 67 now. Wow, that's pretty cool. That's awesome. It has always had phenomenal volume and incredible bass. At the moment, it is playable. Action 12th fret bottom E is 5 millimeters, and that's only because I've had to tighten the truss rod up so tight that the neck bends backwards. Wow. Well, I guess I mean, normally you wouldn't have to do that, but he's dealing with a pretty severe belly bulge, I guess. But yeah, you should, if the neck's bowing even slightly backwards, unless the action is just jacked up a little extra high to deal with that, then yeah, you should be getting fret buzz. But he says, weirdly though, I don't get fret buzz. Hoping I can set it up properly when the bulge is gone. Oh, and it needs refretting. Interesting. So yeah, if you want to keep me posted on that, and you can send us some pictures once you get into setting it up. I'd be real interested, maybe even a video too. That would be helpful, because it's always hard from afar to get a real gauge on what the real problem is when it comes to a guitar that is old and potentially needs maybe a neck reset, maybe the belly reducer like we talked about, a variety of different structural things before you're simply doing standard setup work. Okay, that's all we got in the Discord. Let's go ahead and jump over to YouTube. Actually, we got quite a bit in YouTube. You guys, good job, YouTube. You guys have been asking a lot of good questions. All right, so Manti762 writes, what is the small saw that you used on the binding in this video that I did here a long time ago, called Installing Side Purfling? And I'm almost, without watching the video, I'm going to pull out the saw that I'm virtually certain is the one he would be talking about. Here we go. And it's this little guy right here. This is honestly one of my, hold on, let me fix the screen. This is, I'm doing a video pretty soon on underrated tools, and this will actually be a pretty big feature, I think, in that video, because this is one of my favorite underrated tools, meaning not everyone has this. It's not really talked about all that much, but it's very simple. All it is a curved edge saw. It's actually called, if you buy it, I got this from Stu Mac. If you buy it from Stu Mac, they call it simply the Japanese curved edge mini saw. And the genius of it is simply the fact that the teeth are curved like this, so that when you're using this, you are only ever you're only ever cutting at the crown of that curve, which means you can be really precise. Imagine cutting braces over top, braces that are already glued to your soundboard, and you're trying to trim off little bits of them. A lot of guys do work like that with, hold on one second. Yeah, there we go. With a little Dazuki saw, kind of like this, or even just a little hobby saw that you can get at like Hobby Lobby or something like that. And that's fine. This will do it. The teeth are just the same. The kerf of it is just as fine as this. They're basically the same saw, except this, on this one, because it has a crown where the teeth curve away from it, you're only ever cutting exactly where you want to. Whereas with this, when you're trying to cut over a workpiece like that, you're going to be accidentally digging in with the long extended out parts of the saw all the time, leaving those little marks in your soundboard, which is no fun. So anyway, I cannot recommend this little guy enough. I almost don't use this at all for anything anymore. I just pull out this. Even when it's not a really tight spot, there's something about that, the small size of this and the curve of the teeth, that's just really comfortable for any kind of Dazuki type work. And let's see. Okay. Jonah Guitar Guy writes, great video, Eric. I have to respectably disagree with you about the grain orientation of the ebony nut. So this is on that same twisted neck video that I put out recently. Hold on one second. And at the end of that video, having sort of nothing to do with the twisted neck, I also made a nut out of ebony, and it's something that I've done many times, more for aesthetic purposes than anything else, if I'm being totally honest. But an ebony nut, if done properly, holds up perfectly fine, doing it in this end grain orientation that we're talking about. But he's disagreeing with me here, and that's fine. So he says, I have to respectably disagree with you about the grain orientation of the ebony nut. It would be much stronger, key word that he's using, stronger, with the long grain running in the bass to treble orientation. Do a Google search for what is the best orientation for an ebony string nut. Okay, so here's the problem here. First of all, do a Google search for what is the best orientation, that part of his question. What he's implying there is that I'm giving you advice on how everybody else installs an ebony nut. And really, ebony nuts are primarily used in basically like the violin world. They're not so much of a guitar thing, because guitars have vastly more tension on the nut than in the violin family, where it's about, I'd say, I think it's like 50, you guys can correct me if I'm slightly off here, but I think if I remember correctly, it's like 40 to 50 pounds of string tension across all the strings on a violin, compared to on a guitar, it's 160 plus pounds. So you have a at least a 3x increase in the amount of tension. And so you have more concern about the strings, especially when you're putting them on, taking them off, tuning them up and down, bending and stretching the strings. That string can act a little bit like a saw, and eventually over time cut those slots down a little deeper if it's an ebony nut. Now, I have found, and this has been, I've experimented with this for over a decade and with no issues. I have guitars here in the shop that are 3 of them that are a decade old at least, and the nuts on all of them have held up. The slots haven't lowered, the grain hasn't split or anything like that. So now the other part that he's talking about there, he said it would be much stronger in the long grain direction, and that's correct, but he's talking about strength. I'm talking about wear property. My primary concern, and the reason why I flip the nut onto its end grain surface, is because I want the string resting on end grain. Yes, it's more likely to split on end grain. Well, one little thing about that is you can skew the end grain slightly so that no string is resting on exactly one grain line. But also, honestly, it'd probably hold up even if you weren't that, meticulous about how the grain is turning. Anyway, the end grain is 30 to 50% higher in Janka hardness than the other faces, right? The tangential or the radial face of a block of wood. So that end grain is going to wear, I think, very similar to the wear property of bone, which is why I pull it up on, I take the nut and turn it up like this so that the string is resting on the end grain. And actually, if you think about this, a good way of mentally imagining why that would be the case. So wood grain is effectively like a bundle of straws, okay? And when you're looking at end grain, you are looking straight into those straws, right? And when you're looking at side grain, you are seeing, the profile of the straw. And so if you imagine putting pressure on side grain, you're going to be pretty easily able to deform that side grain or imprint it, like say with your thumb. But when you have end grain, you are actually putting pressure, let's say with your thumb, right down on top of those individual tubes. Okay. And unless your thumb, if your thumb might be kind of sharp, if you could divide those tubes, yeah, it'll split like this. But strings are rounded over and they don't really do that. Anyway, Yeah, it's a difference of strength as opposed to Janka hardness. I wasn't talking about strength at all. I was, or the, you know, the break point, the point at which the nut would actually crack or break, which I think is a legitimate concern with the nut. But I've done like 10 different guitars with Ebony. In a couple cases, I used Cataloche as well, Ebony or Cataloche nuts. And like I said, 3 of them are in this shop. And I use them every once in a while. I break them out and I play them, and none of those nuts have ever split. Nobody's ever come back to me and said, hey, the nut split from the string or anything like that. So honestly, to me, I've worked it out enough where I am fully confident in doing that. And I think it is the best way to orient the nut, because you get that 30 to 50% of more wear resistance from the string. So that's it. And I guess one more thing I just want to say about that is, we're talking about strength here because it is possible that the strings, I think if I keep building guitars with ebony nuts, eventually I will get one where it actually splits along a grain line and breaks it. But we're talking about the nut. So if it did that, one, it would probably do it sooner than later, and I could just make a new one. I would never do something like this if it was some internal component like the block or some of the braces or something like that. So consider that as well. And SM Brumbaugh writes, make no mistake, metalheads are here, my friend. Yeah. I do enjoy a little bit of metal. So that was a comment I made in that video. But nothing really to say about that. Just a fun comment. Okay, Thomas Magierski, will the neck twist more? That's the same. We already answered that with Lamar's question in the beginning. JD writes, nice clear explanation. By the way, all of my Allen wrenches are in a giant Ziploc, and I'm sure the majority are duplicates. Yes, I was a dumbass. Yeah, in that video I posted recently, I talked about, hey, don't be dumb and like I am, and put all of your Allen keys in one piece of Tupperware. And then whenever you get new Allen keys, which we get all the time from IKEA and this and that, don't keep throwing them in that same piece of Tupperware, because you'll have like 80% of those will all be the same exact size, whatever the most popular size is, 4 millimeters or something like that. And it'll be nearly impossible to ever find the one you need. So yeah, so nowadays I just throw out new Allen keys as I get them instead of hoarding them. Let's see. Quarter sawn is ideal. This is from Helena Basquet. Quarter sawn is ideal for acoustic guitars because of its strength. She's doing a face. But a glued-on fretboard and a truss rod make for a stronger neck than a quarter sawn neck. Yes, so I think what you're doing there is the two are not mutually exclusive. So yes, a quarter sawn orientation of the neck is ideal for the purposes of strength. And yes, a glued-on fretboard and a truss rod also make the neck stronger. That doesn't mean that you can just dispose with the quarter sawn neck and not worry about it on any species of wood you would want to use. When you're dealing with that much string tension, like we talked about earlier, 160 pounds of string tension, you want everything working in your favor, which is why the ideal thing to do is make sure the neck is quarter sawn, and then also glue on the fretboard and install the truss rod. And in that video, yeah, the reason she's saying that was a video about using flat sawn lumber instead of quarter sawn, which a lot of people will do with flamed woods, like flamed mahogany, and that's what I was using in that video. Actually, it's for this guitar right here, because you actually, to get the figure that you want from this, this is bird's eye maple. You actually need to orient this in the flat sawn direction. If you go quarter sawn, the bird's eyes will disappear. You won't see them. It will be a waste of a good piece of flamed wood. Now, one thing about that though, a lot of people do this. A lot of people use maple in the flat sawn orientation when it's figured to bring out that figure. But keep in mind, maple is stronger, has a higher Young's modulus of elasticity. So it's less likely to deform under string tension than Honduran mahogany. Okay, so you're getting more weight from maple, but also more strength. And so you can get away with that flat sawn orientation without, having the neck deform. Now, the reason why people like Honduran or genuine mahogany instead of the maple is because even though it's less strong, it has a better stiffness to weight ratio. So you're getting a little less overall strength, but you're getting a massive decrease in weight for that. So that's why really genuine mahogany is kind of like the gold standard for necks. Maple's great, but I think most people would agree that genuine mahogany is the standard. But yeah, great question. Let's see. Not much going on in the chat, so we'll stick with YouTube here. Hi, Eric. Thanks for the cheap guitar diagnosis. So this was on a past recent live stream that I did. Thanks for the cheap guitar diagnosis. I'm sure there are a lot of us who would like to practice repairs on a cheap guitar. One suggestion, it would be nice if you took off the sharing screen mode so that you are full screen. Yes. Okay. Actually, I already saw this and I took that to heart in this live stream. Yeah, in the past live streams I was using, here, I'll pull it up right now. I was, keeping basically the YouTube questions were dominating the screen and you could barely see my face like it is right here. And I'd be explaining something using my hands like this, and you'd have to squint to see what I was doing. So, yeah, I've actually noticed that myself, and I've adjusted my process here. So hopefully I'm doing a little bit better this time. You guys will let me know. Patrick Joy writes, you got a hell of a deal on that bandsaw. I would love to have one and a shop to put it in. Yeah. So that's about my Laguna LT20. So this past summer, I went to an auction and I got a Laguna LT20. So that's a 20-inch resaw capacity bandsaw. This is for my dedicated resaw. I have, this is my little baby 10-inch jet bandsaw over here. And then I have yet another 14-inch bandsaw downstairs. And now I've got the LT20 as a dedicated resaw. I won't be doing anything else with it other than resawing backs and sides and tops. But anyway, I did a whole video on how great that thing is. And it was a good video, actually. Nice, sort of a longish deep dive on dedicated resawing in general and on specifically the LT20. But yeah, man, you got to get a shop to put it in. That definitely comes first. That thing takes up space. You don't want to have it in your living room or anything like that. It's not going to work. A lot of people are going to be unhappy. All right. Francisco Galindo writes, what is the height of the bars? Thank you. He's referencing a video I did on bracing a long time ago. So I'm not sure exactly what they were in that video, but I'll just kind of answer the question as what I generally do now, which I cut my bracing stock to 6 millimeters width. So they're very thin because tall and skinny follows the cube rule. The cube rule tells us that essentially that any truss or beam or brace in the case of guitars gets 8 times more of its strength if it's oriented in the in the tall direction rather than wide. So essentially what that means, you want your braces tall and skinny. So if you look up the standard brace widths and heights on like a Martin guitar or regular factory guitars, you'll notice that they're much wider, and that's has more to do with the factory process and guaranteeing that you're not going to get a weak a knot in a brace or a weak part of a brace with very few grain lines or something like that. But hey, if you're a boutique guitar maker and you're paying close attention to all that stuff, and you're voicing your braces individually or independently, then there's no reason why you should have your braces wide like that. You can actually get them way thinner, and to give them more strength, just raise the height up just a little bit. And so I cut mine at the moment around 15 millimeters. It might be a little bit more, 16 millimeters or 15 and a half, depending on the wood species and the quality of the material. If it has more grain lines, it's going to be a little bit stronger, or less grain lines, a little bit weaker. So all that needs to be considered. But yeah, 14, 15, 16 millimeters, with I'd say 15 being kind of the average. Okay. And check on the time here. Yeah, I actually have kind of a, oh yeah, wow, 4:54. I have kind of a hard cutoff here at 5. Having dinner then. So yeah, if you guys don't have a lot, oh, there we go. We got something in the chat. So I'll probably just do this here in the chat, and then we'll close it off after this question. So we got Carl Mills. Hey, Carl, how you doing? So Carl Mills just signed up for one of the March guitar building workshops. So I'll be meeting Carl in the near future. Carl writes, in your video on building a shooting table, so shooting board is what he's referencing. In your video on building a shooting board, you do not talk about placing the end stop at 90 degrees to the cut edge. Does that matter in the way that you use the shooting board for guitars? Yes, you do want it at 90 degrees to the cutting edge, just simply because if you have two book matched halves and they're reasonably rectangular, when you're pushing them up on that edge, you want to be able to securely push it up against the edge. And if that back bar is tilted just a little bit, it's going to be able to kind of slide forward a little bit. I would say this is something where I don't know exactly why he's asking the question, but if you're maybe you don't have a reliable square or something and you can't really dial that in absolutely perfectly, that's not really going to matter. If it tilts, a degree one way or the other, that's fine. But you wouldn't want it to be, noticeably canted one way or the other. It's just going to be harder to support the wood while you're driving the plane through the edge. Is that what you meant, Carl? I think I understood your question there. Placing the end stop, yeah, at 90 degrees to the cut edge. Yeah, I think that's, yeah, we understand each other. He says yes. Okay, great. All right, guys, relatively short one here, but I got to get going. So we'll do this again next week. You guys are the best. Keep asking questions. Give me more beginner questions, please. This time next week, I want to be able to talk about, actually that last one that Carl gave is a good beginner question, because when you're just starting out, you need to make things like shooting boards. So thank you, Carl. More stuff like that. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.